Wow, all of a sudden it got dark out there. I can't see you. So, good evening, everyone. Yeah, let's try that again. Hello, let me know you're here. Good evening.
Good evening.
Hola. Hola, mi amor. Thank you so much for coming, and a special thank you to Steve and Gabriela for designing this and putting this together. Gabriela has a long track record of putting on these events that highlight our community's intellect and commitments, hopes and struggles and aspirations. So thank you, thank you. So I've been asked to do some sort of an invocation, and it seems fitting to me that during this month in particular, November, we call upon the ancestors. Throughout the Christian world and the indigenous world, we celebrate what North America calls All Saints Day or All Souls Day. We call it Dia de los Muertos. And it's a time indigenous people believe that the portals of time open. It's a special time to access those who have gone before us. And so we begin this event by invoking the presence of our ancestors and our teachers and our loved ones, those who have gone before us. And we ask for their guidance and their wisdom and their strength to love and serve. And in a special way, I want us to remember nuestros mártires, our martyrs. This, by the way, was an altar that was created in memory of the 7 children that died in the detention camps on the border. Some of our martyrs you will know, some perhaps you will not know. We have a custom in our culture that when we celebrate the Day of the Dead, we call out the name of the person, and the people present say presente, present. So I'm going to ask you to do the same thing. I won't say their whole names, but just their first names. These are the children that I was talking about. Felipe.
Presente.
Juan.
Presente.
Darlene.
Presente.
Jacqueline.
Presente.
Carlos.
Presente.
Mari.
Presente.
Wilmer. Josue.
Presente.
Last month I had the privilege of attending a teach-in action in El Paso on the border, the El Paso-Juarez border. I teach a class on the Holocaust here every year, and I always remind my students that there's no such thing as a bystander. And I don't know about you, but this cruelty that our administration has been exercising in general to people, but in particular to our communities, has been really upsetting to me, which is why I wanted to go down to the border. This teach-in action was organized by an institute called the Hope Border Institute and the Latinx Catholic Leadership Coalition. And they're the ones that lift up issues like immigration and identity, anti-racism, Catholicism, the borderlands. Latinx and indigenous speakers shared their stories, their culture. They presented theory and strategies for promoting justice, rooted in their experience as Chicanos, Chicanas, and migrants. And the experience was at times very difficult to witness. It was prophetic, it was inspiring, it was deeply moving. And so I want to share with you some of the things that I've learned and saw. So first of all, I learned that the Customs and Border Protection budget is over $14 billion more than all the other law enforcement budgets in our country put together. This is a misplaced priority to falsely depict immigrants as terrorists. and a national security threat. One of the speakers asked, how is it that along this beautiful border, they have border patrol, but not on the border of Canada? There is 700 miles of border fencing, aircraft drones, surveillance systems, thermal technology, immigration checkpoints, and detention centers with shameful, dehumanizing, and inhumane living conditions. And we've all read about these cases of abuses by enforcement, excessive use of force, entry into the homes without proper warrants, racial profiling to stop, question, and detain people. Shamefully, we have legalized concentration camps. Immigrants tell us of the degrading conditions in the centers. A space for 40, packed by 100. Infants, and as young as 5 months old, are being detained in ice cages. Women stand in front of the toilet facility that lacks a door so that other women can privately use the toilets. Children complain that they must sleep in cold rooms and on cold cement, and then they have to get up in the morning and eat frozen burritos. Often, they are subjected to racist, degrading remarks by enforcement agents. A young mother, Julia, shared her heartbreaking story. Border agents brutally and forcibly forced her 6-month-old baby, forced her out of her arms. And she didn't know where he was for 8 months. Can we imagine the torture that that mother had to endure, being separated? Not knowing where or how her baby was. And finally, the baby was reunited with his mother, but revealing that he had already suffered from traumatic stress. No child should have to experience this deep trauma. Already, at least 42,000 asylum seekers have been returned to Mexico to wait their turn for an appointment with ICE. The government's bigoted, anti-immigration narrative continues to scare, anger, and stir people to hate newcomers and to promote harsher enforcement policies which separate families. Children who have been in cages are now suffering PTSD. This, my friends, is morally wrong. It's deeply inhumane, it's fundamentally racist, it's un-American, it's un-Christian. Father Banuelas, a longtime friend and colleague of mine, stated that immigrants and refugees and asylum seekers are under attack from all sides of our government and society. And the people in El Paso shared about, this one woman was actually kind of cute. She was like, you know, I love Target. And she pulled out her little red card. I love Target. She said, but now I have a target on my back. Because what was distinctive and different from the shootings that happened in El Paso with the other shootings, as bad as all these shootings are, is that those shootings in El Paso was directly, clearly, purposefully directed towards Mexicans and people with brown skin. So we are under attack, they are under attack. Those who live on the border know that there is no secure national security threat here. And it was evident to those working at the borders for reform, for many of us, that human rights violations in the countries of origins that are the cause of forced migration. So take Guatemala, for example, which suffers from life-threatening poverty, extreme hunger, lack of school teachers, a scarcity of healthcare, death threats, victimization by organized crime, displacement of land by American corporations, government corruption, and repression. These are important voices crying out from their suffering for a new way to credibly talk about God. I am a theologian, so it wouldn't be good for me to come up here and give a talk without doing some theology. So I want to say that as a people of faith, we know that the only solution to these isms is Jesus' unconditional love. However, this love must become political action that critiques and transforms racist policies that bring inequality, profound suffering, and death to our people. But solidarity must become more than acompañamiento, or more than accompaniment. We value accompaniment. We understand acompañamiento or accompaniment as a walking with. It connotates a physical, spatial, geographical place of theological reflection. To walk with Jesus and with the poor is to walk where Jesus walks and where the poor walks. And that's why I went to the border. While acompañamiento is a good word, it is only the first step towards solidarity. Again, accompaniment can mean I am with you, I stand with you, but solidarity takes us to a deeper place by getting us out of our comfort zone and inviting us to enter the lives of the victims and the struggling poor, making their suffering and their pain our own. Because real solidarity allows their struggles and their stories, and their dreams, and their plight to penetrate our very soul. This becomes transformative then in our own lives, and in this way, the people become our teachers of justice. A real encounter of solidarity is mutual, and in this mutuality, we become a part of each other's lives, and we learn from each other, and we become more fully human. Father Banuelas, this priest friend of mine that I was telling you about, took a particular passage from Scripture and really reframed it in a way I'd never heard before. Knowing our people's great love for Mary, the mother of Jesus, he raises her up as a model of solidarity. And he talks about her presence as well as the presence of the beloved disciple at the foot of the cross. She is not a passive bystander. It is a deliberate choice to be there, making an option to share in the sufferings of her son, who took upon himself the sufferings of the world. She takes upon herself the scars of all that humanity suffers. Here is also a crucified presence because she partakes in that unspeakable pain of her son. And when Jesus says to her, "Behold your son," and then to the son, to the beloved disciple, "Son, behold your mother," what he's really saying is, look at her, take on her, his pain, her suffering, and make it your own. And it's very interesting to me that in that passage, the beloved disciple is not named, right? And that what that tells me is that it opens that up for us to identify as that disciple who is willing to stand at the foot of the cross. In this case, to stand with those who have this suffering imposed upon them, right? And for us not to remain silent, right? Not to just accompany, but to work for justice, to work for justice. So that others might live. Thank you very much.